Welcome to the first in a series of 4 lectures on the Weimar Republic. Why did it fail? In this lecture we will examine why the Weimar Republic was built on rocky foundations. With this, we will look especially at the constitution of the Republic and how, despite being built with the best of intentions and strong democratic values, the constitution made the Weimar Republic flawed from the start. When we talk about the Weimar years, we are discussing the government of Germany since the end of World War I and the ascendancy of the Nazi Party under Hitler in 1933. It was named Weimar because when the government was formed, it was too dangerous for the leaders to meet in the capital of Berlin. Therefore they met in the small town of Weimar, 155 miles from the capital. This lecture will be split into 4 parts. Firstly, we will examine the stab in the back theory that explains why the Weimar Republic was undermined from the start by conspiracy and rumor. Then we will examine the constitution and its values. We will then look at 2 important parts of the constitution. The Weimar Republic was formed after Germany's Emperor Kaiser Wilhelm II was forced to abdicate in November 1918. Shortly afterwards, the politicians of a provisional government met the leaders of France and Britain on a train and signed the armistice that ended World War I. These politicians would then go on to create the new Weimar Republic in 1918. However, a rumor spread through the ranks of the army that this new government had betrayed the army leaders by signing the armistice before the generals were ready to surrender and admit defeat. This rumor started at the very top by General Paul von Hindenburg, who was commander-in-chief. He stated that Germany had been stabbed in the back by its new leaders. This is a German cartoon released after World War I. It shows the German soldiers in the trenches and a Weimar politician reaching over to stab them in the back. Behind the Weimar politician you can see 3 overweight men observing his actions. These are Jewish bankers sat on piles of money. This is an anti-Semitic image that uses stereotyping to associate the Jews with the Weimar Republic. It suggests that the Jews profited from Germany's defeat in the war and manipulated the Weimar politicians into signing the armistice. The caption says, "Germany, remember." This stab in the back theory continued to plague the Weimar years and was often used by the Nazi Party during the 1930s to turn voters against the Weimar politicians. The rumor became more and more outlandish as the years went on. People were manipulated to believe that the Weimar Republic not only betrayed the German people by letting the Allied powers win the war, but they did so as part of a Jewish conspiracy to allow the Jews to take power. A constitution is a set of laws drawn up by any new government. Once set, these laws had to be followed by all elected politicians. The Weimar Republic's constitution was designed to be the most modern and fairest laws of any country in Europe. Germany would be a republic, ruled by a president, where everyone over the age of 20, including women, had the right to vote for their representatives in the German parliament called the Reichstag. This made it a democracy. However, Germany had been an absolute monarchy before this, so conservative members of society saw the new system as weak. The Weimar Republic was set up to ensure that nobody had too much power. At the top, Germany had a president, who had to stand for re-election every 7 years. The president would then elect the chancellor, who would often be the leader of the largest political party in the Reichstag. The chancellor was in charge of running the Reichstag and making policies. Every politician with a seat in the Reichstag was elected into office.
Every democracy has a system to decide how votes translate into representatives in Parliament. Today in the UK, We have something called first past the post, where everyone votes in their constituency or region and the winning party gets representation in parliament. However, this means that votes are lost for those parties that come second place. It is therefore seen as unfair.
Instead, Germany chose a system of proportional representation. This meant the number of votes each political party received was equivalent to the number of seats they received. While this is technically a fairer system, it meant there were more parties represented in the Reichstag. Each came with their own agendas and political ideas, and therefore this caused lots of arguments. This was made worse by the fact that no party was able to achieve a majority, meaning they could not pass votes without opposition. These two pie charts show how votes translate into seats in Parliament. Under the British first past the post system, there are fewer parties represented, and it is therefore easier for one party to form a government. Every law has to go to a vote in Parliament before it can be passed. If one party has a majority, this makes passing laws much more straightforward. However, in the Reichstag during the Weimar Republic years, proportional representation meant it was hard to pass laws. This is because different political parties had to arrive at a consensus or agreement in order for the law to be passed. This was difficult because they all had different beliefs and ideas. Arguments were more likely to break out. To overcome this problem, political parties formed coalitions. This is where one party joins with another to form a ruling majority. It's like a political marriage, where the two parties try to find mutual ground and compromise in order to govern effectively together. The problem with this is that both parties have to dilute their ideas in order to compromise with the other. This is like mixing blue and yellow paint together to form green. In the end, the compromise might not suit either of the two parties. This caused problems with their support base when the voting German public believed that their chosen political party had sacrificed too many of their values and beliefs. The second significant flaw in the Weimar Constitution was Article 48. A constitution is made up of articles, which are simply laws the government has to follow. Article 48 states that, in times of emergency and when the Reichstag are unable to reach a consensus, the president can rule by decree. This meant that the president had the powers of a dictator in times of crisis. The Weimar Republic saw many crises over its 14 years, and so the president came to over-rely on this article in order to effectively govern the country. Since this article was included as part of the Weimar Constitution, one could argue that the seeds of the Republic's destruction were planted within. In 1933, Hitler was able to use Article 48 to bypass the Reichstag. He passed laws that dismantled the Weimar Republic and prevented the German people from voting for any other political party. Let's go back to our overarching question of why did the Weimar Republic fail? The rocky foundations all constitute long-term causes for the Weimar's failure. They also support the argument that Weimar was doomed to fail from the very start. To discuss this, I would first talk about the stab in the back conspiracy, to show how Weimar was undermined from the outset by army generals and how this caused a high level of mistrust that continued throughout the Weimar years. I would then discuss the constitution and how, in an attempt to make the republic as fair and as democratic as possible, it became difficult to form a ruling majority. I would discuss proportional representation as part of this, and link this to the need for coalition governments. I would then discuss the fatal flaw of Article 48 and how this led to the president ruling by decree in times of emergency. I would explain how Hitler would eventually use Article 48 to dismantle the democratic system of the Republic. This has been the first in a series of 4 lectures on the Weimar Republic. Please tune into the following lecture on the problems that Weimar faced in its early years of 1919 to 1923. Thank you for watching.